All right, so I just got back from the movie theater and I saw Project Hail Mary, if you can't tell from the title. Um, I read the book maybe like about a year ago, and I've been anticipating the movie ever since they released the trailer. The trailers have just been amazing. Amaze, amaze, amaze. So I've been really excited, and I think overall they did a really good job with the movie, but I just have to talk about it because I loved the book so much and I loved these characters so much that I just need to talk about it because I think this movie is awesome in its own right as well. But there are things that it was missing, and there are things that it kind of sped through really quickly. Like they didn't really like some of the scenes. They just kind of like quickly went over some stuff that I kind of wish they spent more time on. But you know, it's a movie, so they got to fit it in somehow, and I understand that. But I just wanted to talk about it because I love it so much. And yeah, let's just jump into it. So just to start, there are going to be spoilers. I'll be spoiling the heck out of the movie and the book. So if you haven't read it, go read it. If you haven't watched it, go watch it. Definitely recommend it. And yeah, let's just go on. So the movie, starts just like the book, right? Where Grace wakes up, he's on the ship, and they kind of like that's all the same, right? He wakes up from his coma, he's in the ship, and then they speed through like a bunch, like it feels like the whole beginning part of the book was just sped through because he doesn't go through the whole answering question thing with the robot. Now, forgive me for not remembering too much. I did read this book a while ago, so if I get some things wrong, please correct me. But in the beginning of the book, I do remember Grace waking up and having to deal with the robot and its questions in order to have access into the next like part of the ship. And in order to unlock the next part of the ship, he has to like answer more questions, like basic math questions, and then his name and stuff like that. And then the hatch would open and he'd be able to access a new part of the ship. So he didn't really know where he was at first in the book, and it was very, very mysterious in that way. But the movie, he just wakes up, falls off the table, and then he quickly realizes he's in space. So immediately, I think, I don't have a problem with them condensing this part, but it's kind of like setting up for how some other stuff is tackled throughout the movie as well, which, is a little bit disappointing. I will say that, but not as a book reader, not detrimental really. And I'll explain why at the end, but I just kind of wish that there was more to the beginning of the movie than what they did, because like immediately they removed like Grace figuring out that he was in space by using gravity and having access to his lab and just using the limited tools. It just sets up how smart the character is at figuring stuff out and how resourceful they are with the materials that they have. And I thought it was like a really good character introduction that was just completely skipped over. But the movie did approach it in a more comedic way, where you just see Grace kind of on the ship and not really goofing off, but like just going through the different stages of acceptance, or I don't know what to call it, just realizing why he's there or what he's doing up here, and going through everybody's belongings. And I thought the movie handled the I guess you could call it like a funeral scene with his two crewmates very well. I thought that was a very emotional scene, handled very well in the movie. But that, this was kind of telling as to how stuff was going to be handled. But it was fine. It was fine because I felt like, not to jump to the end real quick, but I did think the movie, like I did enjoy the movie a lot, but you know, stuff like this is going to pop up throughout my talk. Yeah, and I just wanted to talk about it. So yeah, that was the beginning. And then I'm trying to remember where they went from there. I think, you know, they talk about him, you know, he's a school teacher, like a middle school teacher. And, you know, his kids are asking about the Petrova line and the dangers that it's causing Earth. And they kind of quickly explain, you know, how dangerous it is and how, you know, like what's going to happen to the Earth in like a few generations, and how it's like they tackle through these really hard topics in the classroom very quickly. And it kind of it lightens the situation a bit. Like, this is a very dire situation for Earth. And I feel like throughout the movie, like, they don't even, like, there's a lot that goes into Project Hail Mary that we don't see, right? The movie's called Project Hail Mary, but we don't really get to see the process of making Project Hail Mary. We just get to see, you know, Grace solving the problem in Project Hail Mary, but a lot of the Earth stuff is really heavily condensed and watered down to just Strat and Grace for the most part. Very little of the astronauts, and like, you know, there's Carl too, which I will mention, the extra scenes with Carl I really did like. There's a scene in the movie where they're shopping for the materials to build their dark box to find the astrophage. I really liked that scene, and there were a couple scenes in the movie that they added, like extra things they added that I think were appropriate and felt right. Even though, you know, they removed stuff, but then they also added some stuff, and I thought the added stuff was actually appropriate and inoffensive, and I really liked it. And I really liked the scenes with Carl and that friendship they were building, because, you know, we'll get there when we talk about the ending, but I really like the development between those two characters. And yeah, the scene with them building the box, and then, you know, Carl coming up with the idea that, oh, well, maybe, you know, maybe they're attracted to, I forgot which element it was, but, you know, Carl comes up with the idea that maybe they're attracted to this element, and then Grace is like, yeah, that's probably right. And then, you know, it works, and they figure out how to breed astrophage, and, you know, that was a really cool scene. But again, very, very quickly done. Well, this scene actually wasn't very quickly done. The dark box scene wasn't very quickly done. The scientific stuff in the lab, when Strat brings him over, was done quickly, and Grace quickly, like he does his job. He figures out what astrophage is made out of. I'm kind of jumping around a bit because this was before they built the box and breeded astrophage. But I think this is important because that while Strat brought him in because of his previous studies and how he believed life doesn't need water to survive, which is the reason why he was picked to study astrophage. The scene in the lab where he's doing his, you know, examination with astrophage and trying to figure out what it is, was really well done, but done very quickly. And then after that, you know, Strat's ready to just toss him aside and let the other world scientists figure it out. And there's no period where Grace is like contemplating, should I be a part of this mission or should I not? He just quickly says, I need to be part of this mission, and then they just continue. So that whole thing where he like rushes in and he's like, I need to do this. I need to study astrophage. I need to do this for my kids was kind of cut out. Yeah. But you know, that is what it is. After that, I'm trying to remember after I just saw the movie and I'm trying to remember the book stuff too, so I can compare it. Because there's a lot here that I kind of want to talk about. Like I think a next talking point is Strat's character as well. Strat is a big part of the book, right? She's the one in charge of managing everybody and all the resources and all the plans, and she basically is like this super powerful like person that, you know, the book describes her as like she has all the power in the world. Nothing can touch her, nothing can stop her. She could do whatever she wants as long as it's for Project Hail Mary. And, you know, there are scenes in the book where they show this and they show her power and they show how powerful she is, and those are just completely gone. Strat is kind of, you know, she is still the project leader, she is still managing everything, but we don't really see that. And I think that's kind of, I was a little disappointed in that, to be honest, because I think Strat's a really interesting character and I wanted to see more from her, because there are other characters tied to Strat that are completely missing. Like I mentioned how, you know, the movie's called Project Hail Mary, but we don't really see how the project is developed. They completely cut out a lot of stuff. Like when Grace figures out how to breed astrophage with Carl, and then they inform everybody on the in the meeting room or the boardroom, wherever it is, and he's giving his little speech about it, and then, you know, one of the people are able to replicate it, and then everybody's able to start breeding astrophage. There are ideas that are put into Project Hail Mary that are just absent from the movie. For example, one of the big things for astrophage breeding was the big panels in the desert, right? That whole character who came up with that idea and that whole breeding sequence to get enough fuel to fly off into Tau Ceti is just completely gone, right? And then the whole Antarctica scene is completely missing, right? This was their plan to try and warm the Earth, and when, like, that was a scene I kind of wanted to see in the movie because it was such a powerful scene. Like, we're basically destroying the Earth in order to save it or give it more time. And I think visually that would have looked phenomenal on screen, especially in IMAX. The IMAX theater was a good choice because this movie absolutely nailed the visuals. All the space stuff, all the little montages they did in space was incredible. This was the best thing I could say about this movie is that it felt like this movie was made for book readers. I know I brought some people who haven't read the book. They enjoyed the movie too, but a lot of the science stuff they did not understand, right? The xenonite, the the astrophage, the the tau amoeba stuff. The tau amoeba they barely talked about in the movie. I felt like a lot of that stuff that probably needs explanation in order to understand does not get any explanation, which is why I think this movie was made for book readers mostly. But it doesn't really, it doesn't. It is what it is. Somebody who read the book, I still really enjoyed it. Just those missing scenes were kind of sad in a way. But I will say, despite, the Earth stuff being condensed heavily and Strat's character kind of not living up to who I thought she was in the book, I'm sure she's still that same person in the movie. but they just don't show it. Oh, I will say they added a karaoke scene where Strat does karaoke, and they kind of build a romance between Strat and Grace. Now, it's not like they kind of hint that there might be something there and that Grace may have feelings for Strat. And I think this is all trying to lead up to the big betrayal in the end. The same thing with Carl. I did like that scene. I thought that was a good scene with Strat doing karaoke and, hyping everybody up before the mission and the big party scene. I kind of wish they, speaking on that real quickly, the astronauts themselves, right? We don't see very much of the astronauts. We get bits and pieces, right? They do show up in some of the flashbacks, but, we don't really see any of their training. And as far as I can remember, yeah, if they did, it was very brief, or it was maybe like in a quick thing, but it's not a big part of the movie. So we don't get a good feel for the astronauts who are going to be going into space and sacrificing their lives. We just don't get that, right? And we don't, when the big oopsie happens in one of the labs and it blows up, we're not really, we don't really have a good feel for who those characters are when they die. So, that happens, and then it quickly flings into, well, we need replacement for them, right? So, yeah, just a little bit disappointed that the Earth stuff was done the way that it was done. But, putting that aside, the stuff that they needed to get right, and it's why I love this movie a lot, they did get right. And that's Rocky. The big hook in this movie is Rocky himself, right? Rocky and Grace's relationship is why I love the book. It's what made the book unique and different and really fun. And this movie focuses very heavily on that for the most part. I'll get into that, but because there are some stuff that I wish they did more with Rocky. But the relationship between those two was done and handled very well. I like the decision to give Rocky a voice. It kind of, because in the book, Grace actually learns Rocky's language. He does do the computer thing where he starts typing in words, and he's able to create like a dictionary with all of Rocky's words. But eventually he just knows what Rocky's saying because they spend so much time together, and that the computer is not really necessary anymore. And the movie does portray this at the very end, but I do understand why they used the computer to give Rocky a voice, and I actually really liked it because it worked very well. Yeah, for all the main scenes on the ship when they're, doing their science and talking about each other and, doing buddy stuff, it works. It works extremely well. Loved it. And I'm trying to think where to go from here, but yeah, the puppetry of Rocky was phenomenal. I loved the designs. There were a couple shots where they zoom in on the puppet and you see all these interesting different colored things on his skin, and you see the bottom part with his mouth or his butt or whatever you want to call it. You see he has carvings on his arm, which means something to him, and there's so much, it feels like there's so much detail put into Rocky that I had no idea was there, that it added a layer to the character that absolutely blew me away, and my expectations were completely met when it comes to Rocky's character and Grace's character for the most part. But yeah, moving on from that, so their partnership to save each of their planets was really fun. But okay, so the scene where they're collecting astrophage from the Petrova line, amazing. The scene, you know, the big scene where in the movie they call it going fishing, but they basically put down, you know, the big capture device that Rocky created to capture the predator for astrophage was done really well. And the whole sequence that comes after, you know, where the ship's fuel tank has a hole and, you know, they're being pushed back into the atmosphere and they have to try and push themselves out, so they jettison the fuel tank and, you know, the pressure is flinging them to the side of the ship and it's really tense. And, you know, this is the scene where Rocky gets injured because, you know, Grace passed out and, you know, somebody needs to push the button so that they can safely get back out of the atmosphere. Was done and handled very well. Now, I think, okay, so I remember in the book, Grace carrying Rocky and getting extreme burns on his arm. But this doesn't happen in the movie. I think they reversed it. Now, somebody could correct me if I'm wrong, but in the movie, it shows, you know, Grace is going in and out of conscience. And you see Rocky carrying Grace to safety and putting him by the robot so that the robot can put him or give him the treatment he needs to get better. And Rocky kind of just crawls his way back into his atmosphere, his little habitat area. And yeah, that whole sequence, despite being different, was incredible. And then, you know, this is kind of where things start to go really, really fast, and I wish it didn't, because, you know, this whole sequence was done so well, and, you know, Rocky is hurt very, very badly. I think by this point, people who don't know, or, you know, you don't even know when you're reading the book, like, you're not even sure at this point, is Rocky dead? Is Rocky going to survive? Right? I know in the book, Grace does some stuff to try and help Rocky, and it actually does a little bit more harm than good. But in the movie, all he does is, like, he puts like a heat light or something to try and warm Rocky up a bit. And that's pretty much it. Then he kind of just focuses on breeding the predators that are used to eat astrophage. And that's like the main focus until Rocky gets better. And this is the part, or these next few parts, I noticed were, you know, I wish they focused more on this. I hope there's like an extended version, but the way it was handled in the movie, it doesn't sound like there's gonna be these scenes aren't gonna be in, because they're just completely cut. And that is when they're breeding the predators. So Grace's character just kind of does all of the breeding very quickly, while Rocky is kind of passed out and healing. Like, they don't go through all the generations and all, you know, like they make the Xenonite breeding tanks, and I forgot which number they had to reach, but there's like a certain percentage of, oh my god, I can't remember the element, but there's a certain element on Venus that is killing the predators, and they need to try and make them, like, they need to try to make predators that are resistant to this element so that they can survive on the planets that they need. And, you know, they don't, like, the scenes go by so fast that Rocky doesn't, like, Rocky's completely passed out for all of this, right? So Rocky isn't able to tell Grace, hey, my planet's atmosphere, or the percentage for my planet is a little bit higher than yours, so you have to breed more. They don't do this in the movie. Like, I guess it's assumed that both planets require the same amount of Tau amoeba to, you know, fix their astrophage problem. But the movie doesn't say that, you know, because Rocky and Grace have to work together to save each of their planets, and they have to, you know, go above the percentage, the required percentage, to make it safe. But they never talk about this, and they never talk about how, you know, Rocky's is different, and it makes me wonder, well, if Grace, I mean, I guess this is how they could extend the scene if they did want to put this in so we can get more Rocky and Grace time, is Rocky wakes up and he sees the breeding farms and he's like, hey, mine need to be a little bit stronger, so we need to work on this more. They could absolutely do that to make it like have more Grace and Rocky moments. But I don't know if they're gonna do that. And then the whole scene where, like, I forgot. Okay, so I'm kind of talking out of order here, but you know, this is all coming to me at different times. There's a scene in the book that I really loved when the Tau amoeba escape and start eating the astrophage from their fuel tanks. Like, it somehow gets into the vents or something and is able to make its way to the fuel, and it starts eating the astrophage fuel that they need to get back. And this is a problem because they need that fuel to get to Rocky's ship so they can get more astrophage for travel. But yeah, if it eats all the fuel, then they're stuck. They're just kind of stuck. So they have to work together to try and clean all this stuff up, and that's just not here at all. There's no scene where, you know, Grace is trying to clean up all the Tau amoeba, and there's no scene where Rocky is like analyzing human technology and able to recreate it perfectly, right? Like, I know he builds Grace like a whole new like fuel tank thing, and I think that's done in the movie because he needs it to get back to Earth, but it's not, they don't focus on any of that. And that whole scene where they're trying to clean the ship and get all the Tau amoeba off of the ship is just gone. So that kind of like the threat, like when the big thing happens where Grace figures out that Tau amoeba are able to travel through Xenonite, you don't really understand how threatening that is because they didn't show them dealing with the problem before. And I wish they did, because, you know, like I said, my favorite part of this movie, Grace and Rocky, and those scenes in particular showed them working together very, very well, and it was just gone. So yeah, that was sad because, you know, it I guess it's bittersweet because I love them so much. I just want more of them. But yeah, so the thing that follows, right? Grace figures out, well, here's what happens, right? Basically, Rocky gets his half of the Tau amoeba to bring back to his planet. Grace gets his half, and then they kind of separate. They say their goodbyes, which was done very well. I loved the little goodbye that Rocky does to Grace, where he, like, you know, rubs his hand on his arm, and that's their way of saying goodbye because they don't really have a word for it. Done very, very well. And then, you know, Grace figures out, oh no, the Tau amoeba are able to get through Xenonite because of the breeding process. He mentions this very, very quickly. It's a huge problem, but he's just like, because we don't see the breeding process, and because it doesn't really focus on the materials used for the breeding process, because this discovery doesn't come quickly, right? Like, Grace has to go through some, you know, he has to science the shit out of this to figure out that Xenonite, or that the Tau amoeba have evolved to a point where they can travel through Xenonite. He figures this out because they have multiple breeding farms. And I think, actually, if I remember correctly, one of the breeding farms was actually one of the beetles used to bring information back to the Earth. So I think he had a breeding farm in one of the beetles, and those Talmiba were still locked into their environment, and then all the Xenonite ones were escaping, and then he came to the conclusion, oh, that's a problem. Why is that a problem? Because Rocky's entire ship is made of Xenonite, right? Like, it's a big revelation thing that is just kind of quickly glossed over in the movie. So then, you know, he has to go back, or no, he has to make this decision. Do I go back to Earth, right? Or do I go back and save Rocky? And of course he's going to choose Rocky, right? Of course he's going to choose Rocky. And so he goes back to save Rocky, and then I think the reunion, right? It's done so quickly. It's done so quickly. This is where I felt like it's going too fast. This movie's going too fast. I want it to slow down. Like, I love everything that's happening. I love what I'm seeing. But I just wanted them to tap the brakes a little bit, to spend more time, you know, going through the process. And, you know, Grace had to, like, go through all this trouble to find Rocky. But it's done so quickly. And then they reunite, which is really touching. And then it speed runs to basically the ending. Right? We learn that Grace never wanted to be an astronaut. He never wanted to be on this mission. But was forced to by Strat, which is the big betrayal moment, right? I felt like this moment was also sped up very quickly, right? Because, you know, after the scientist died in the explosion, they basically told Grace, hey, we need you on the mission, and they kind of gave him a fake choice. They're like, we'll let you think about it, but really, you don't have a choice in this. So when he said no, he can't do it, they're like, too bad. And the whole coma thing, right? Like, the whole coma-resistant gene is completely absent. The whole, like, French... Like, there's a French spy amnesia drug that Strat uses, which is completely absent. None of that explains, like the amnesia at the beginning of the film is basically, well, he was in a coma for so many years. Now he's just fuzzy in the head and trying to remember everything. But that actually wasn't what happened in the book. In the book, he was actually on some type of drug that when he woke up would slowly bring back his memories. And the idea was that he would keep his ability to think, you know, do all of his science thinking and stuff, but like, all of his personal memories are just completely gone. So he starts to remember everybody and who he was very, very slowly. And the movie still does that, but it just doesn't have the amnesia drug to explain it. And also, like I said, the coma-resistant drug, which is a whole big plot line. Interesting. I mean, it still works in the movie because, you know, Grace is the leading scientist on astrophage, but what the coma-resistant drug did was basically, like, it was very, very rare that people had it, and Grace had it. So when Strat knew that Grace had it, she knew to keep him around for all this stuff and to bring him in on all the meetings and explanations. And that was like a big thing for Strat. Like, she was basically never... I guess in the book, it was more... Like, the movie kind of portrays that they did kind of love each other a little bit, and maybe there was a little flame there that, you know, Strat may be interested in Grace, and that Grace may be interested in Strat. But, you know, I didn't really get a sense of that in the books too much. Because in the book, Grace is seen as like the big number two, right below Strat, because he knows everything. He's involved in everything. But, you know, in the movie, you don't get that sense of power from Grace. He's just kind of like... I don't want to say he's like goofing off in the background, but they do show some scenes where they're talking about, Project Hail Mary and things that they're going to put in it. And Grace is just kind of in the background, like, oh yeah, that's he'll say something funny or random, and it's a completely different approach, let's just say. But yeah. So that happens, and then we get to the ending of the movie, which is the ending is I would say pretty much perfect. The ending is actually, the way the movie ending portrayed it was a lot nicer and better than I had it in my head. So in the movie, he has like this whole big biome thing. In my head, I'm thinking, oh, they probably gave him like a little space where he can move around, because it's described as like, well, he has his lights so he can see, and I imagine that the biome was much smaller, because he would go out and he would look and he'd be like, oh, I can see Iridian, the Iridian planets, but it's so dark. And, sometimes I shine my light through and I can get a glimpse of one of the Iridians. And it makes it seem like the biome is much smaller, more enclosed than what we get in the movie. And it doesn't, his living conditions don't, like in the book, his living conditions on Iridian don't seem as pleasant as it does. Because the movie, he's got like his own house, he's got his little robot there to help him do stuff, right? He's got a nice comfy bed, an alarm clock, and Rocky's, I will say I do love the movie's portrayal of the ending. It's much nicer, much more vibrant and beautiful and calming. I did love that. And then Rocky's little spacesuit so that he can visit Grace at his house was so nice, right? Like Grace doesn't have to go into these like little rooms to visit people. Like Rocky's just able to come in with his little spacesuit and visit Grace, and they're able to hang out with each other on the beach, and it was so good. I actually really loved that so much. And the final scene, was missing the piano. He still uses his computer to communicate. I'm sure he just has his little speech program working in reverse, which makes a lot more sense. But I do love the book ending of him, just playing the piano so he can communicate, right? Like all of it's just coming out of the top of his head, because he can basically, well, he can't speak their language, but he's able to know enough of it that he's able to replicate it through what I assume is this Iridian-made instrument that he can use to communicate. And I was looking forward to that, but that wasn't there. Instead, he's using the computer. But as soon as I saw the Iridian children, it's it definitely hit really hard, and it was perfect. It was perfect. I also really like the scene where Strat, right? Because they built this kind of like relationship between Grace and Strat, and it was nice to see, instead of the Iridians basically telling Grace, hey, your son is back to normal, right? That's the only information we get in the book, is that Earth's sun is back to normal, so we can assume that the plan, or the Beatles made it back, and the plan was successful, and everything worked out. But in the movie, we actually get to see a little bit more of what happens on Earth. So we see Strat, like, I forgot how many years into the future, but you can tell that she's aged a little bit. She gets the video recordings of Grace. She sees Grace, and I love this. Grace is introducing Rocky, and, Rocky's doing his thing on the camera to Strat, and He sends over the little space figures that Rocky made. It was I really enjoyed that little extra moment. You know, even though Strat's character was meant to be more little like evil and like, well, not really evil, but just the type of person who will do anything to save humanity and get the job done. It was just nice to see that the the Talmiba made it back safely, and Strat got the message. And I loved Grace's little comment, "Well, you're smart, you'll figure it out." comment, because I think she said something similar to Grace in previously in the film, and it was a nice gotcha kind of moment. I really liked that. You know, and we get a little bit of, well, we see the Talmiba come in to, like, you know, we see that it's like snowing outside. We can see that the earth has definitely dropped in temperature, and that they're getting very, very close to becoming you know, Earth at this point is in a lot of danger, but the solution is here, and all we can assume in the movie's point of view is that it works, right? We don't get that confirmation that the sun's back to normal in the movie and that everything worked out. We just see that the Talmiba were delivered and that they'll be able to handle it from there. But yeah, that was Project Hail Mary. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. There's a lot to talk about. I could probably ramble for a very, very long time. Hopefully I was able to speak about everything I wanted to speak about. But I really did love this movie. And, you know, as someone who read the books, while not perfect, this was an experience. I went into this not knowing if it was going to be, you know, well, I knew that it wasn't going to be able to show or do everything. So I went in with those expectations. So the cut stuff doesn't really bother me. The stuff that they sped through was a little bit disappointing, because I kind of wish they did spend more time explaining some of those things, going through some of those scenes in the book. But I will say the visual spectacle, the music was phenomenal. It paired with the space adventure very well. This movie had a lot of really, really amazing visuals. All the space stuff, the spacewalks, the stuff where, you know, Grace has to put on the suit and go out into space. It was awesome. The scene where they're collecting, I don't know if I talked about this, but the scene where Grace is on the spaceship, or outside on the spaceship, collecting astrophage, right? And they're in the Petrova line, and he says he's having his moment, was so beautifully done, right? And then when they're out on Adrian and looking at the planet, it was so good. It was so good. But yeah, the movie, while not perfect, was a very, to me, it was a very positive experience. And I really want to watch this movie again, because it just reliving parts of the book, like even if they cut parts of the book out, just reliving those parts in the book, in the movie, because the parts they did faithfully adapt were adapted very well. So just being able to relive those moments, relive those characters, remember this story, was amazing. And like I said, the big thing that they had to get right, they got right. Rocky was amazing. I loved Rocky in this movie, and they did the Grace and Rocky relationship, I would say, pretty much perfectly. I loved it. So yeah, that's enough rambling from me. I just had to talk about this movie because I love this story so much. I love these characters so much, and I just want to talk about it. But yeah, that's gonna be it for me. I highly recommend this movie. Even if you haven't read the book, I think it's still a very good experience. Very good visuals, like I said, very good characters. I think people will really like Rocky a lot. You know, despite not having all the sciencey stuff and not explaining some of the sciencey stuff, might be difficult for some new viewers who haven't read the book. But still I think it's still a very good experience. At least the people I brought with me to the theater who didn't read the book enjoyed it. So I'm just going off that. If they enjoyed it and they didn't read the book, I think it's successful as a movie. But as a book reader, and you know, going to see this movie, I think for the time it had, the 2.5 hours it had, I think it handled it very well. But yeah, I'm done rambling now, so no more. Go see it. That's going to be it for me. So if you made it this far, thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys on another one. Later.